What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So in today's video, I'm going to be giving my reaction and review of Marvel Studios' latest superhero film, Thunderbolts. And just so you guys know, this video will contain some mild spoilers, so if you haven't gotten around to going to see this movie yet, and you don't want to know anything that happens in it, you might want to exit this video now. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. Thunderbolts is an American superhero film based on Marvel Comics featuring the team Thunderbolts. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, it is a 36th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the MCU. The film was directed by Jake Schreier from a screenplay by Eric Pearson and Joanna Kahlo, and stars an ensemble cast featuring Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, Wyatt Russell, Olga Kurylenko, Louis Pullman, Geraldine Viswanathan, David Harbour, Hannah John-Kamen, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus. In the film, a group of anti-heroes are caught in a deadly trap and forced to work together on a dangerous mission. Now, Marvel Studios first teased the formation of a Thunderbolts team within the MCU in 2021. The film was revealed to be in development in June of 2022, when Schreier and Pearson were attached. The main cast was then revealed in September, with additional casting through early 2023. Lee Sung-jin joined to rewrite the script by March of 2023, and one of the several creators who returned to work with Schreier from the Netflix series Beef. Production was then delayed due to the 2023 Hollywood labor disputes, causing some cast changes in early 2024. And Kahlo joined by then for further rewrites. Filming took place in February to June of 2024 at Trillis Studios and Atlanta Metro Studios in Atlanta, Georgia, and also on location in Utah and Kuala Lumpur. And Thunderbolts premiered on April 22nd of 2025 at the Empire Leicester Square in London, England, and was released in the United States on May the 2nd. As the final film of Phase 5 of the MCU. And so far, the film has received positive reviews from critics and has grossed, up to this point, $11 million. Now, at the time of the making of this video, the movie has an 88% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 203 critic reviews, with its popcorn meter currently sitting at 95% based on over 1,000 ratings. The film has a Metascore of 68 on Metacritic based on 50 critic reviews, and it has a user score of 7.8 based on only 17 user ratings. And finally, the movie has a 7.8 out of 10 on IMDb with almost 14,000 ratings. Now, when Thunderbolts was first announced, I will admit to you guys, I saw it as a placeholder movie, right? A movie that would get made not because people cared all that much about the characters involved, or even the story that would get told, but rather its existence would be purely that of a cash grab, if I'm being honest, on the way to the next Avengers movie. And don't get me wrong, there were films like that in the earlier phases of the MCU. I personally viewed the Captain Marvel film, Thor Ragnarok, and even the Guardians of the Galaxy movies as placeholder films, but I was ultimately convinced to see those films because I knew something epic in Infinity War and Endgame was coming, and I didn't want to be left out of the loop when it finally arrived. That's not really the case here, as the MCU has become stale. And I think it's a lot to do with the fact that there's Marvel fatigue here, right? When this whole MCU thing first started, it was fresh, it was new, and people were excited. But what has happened over the years is you basically got an ongoing story that does not have an ending. And so I understand why people get to a place where they just kind of go, are they still doing that thing? The other thing I think that's going on is that people are kind of aging out of this kind of thing where, when the first Marvel movies came out, they were like teenagers and now they're grown adults who care a lot less about this kind of thing. But the other thing is, I think that the screenwriters that have been writing, these movies as of late, they care much more about changing the characters' looks and sex in order to make political points instead of giving us, the audience, the stories we actually want to see told. But that's a rant for another time in another video. Furthermore, I considered a superhero movie with not only no superheroes, but maybe no heroes to be had at all. And I wasn't all that convinced that this movie would live up to its billing as the best Marvel movie since Avengers Endgame. So there's that. Now, the story was your typical by the beats, paint by numbers superhero narrative, the kind these movies are known for, right? Now, I will say the pacing of the movie was fairly good, with the film's runtime coming under 2.5 hours, which I personally appreciated, especially given what the story beats actually were. Because the entire film was about assembling a team of sorts, right? The kind of movie we've seen before in the MCU, if you remember, which made the film, in my mind, deeply introspective, right? Which I can also appreciate, narratively speaking, right? I think the narrative was a little bit deeper in this movie than they typically are in a lot of these movies. But, I don't know that it makes up for what the movie is missing. Each of the film's prominent characters is seeking redemption in one way or another, right? Because none of them feel like heroes, due mostly to their past transgression, right? But they all very badly want to be, Yelena most of all. And speaking of Yelena, it was clear, abundantly clear, that this movie was meant to be her coming out party, right? I mean, if you look at the posters and stuff like that, she's in the middle. She's clearly, the film clearly wanted to focus on her. Even in its opening image, she has a lengthy voiceover leading us into the film's setup, which is also focused on her until the point where she encounters the rest of the would-be team of anti-heroes in the vault she's been sent to clear out by Valentina. And it's even mentioned by the writers throughout the dialogue that Yelena wants to be the kind of person that can be dependent upon in the event that the people around her make a mistake, right? She was the goalie on her Pee Wee League soccer team, and she chose to be the goalie because she wanted to be the cleanup person, right? If someone makes a mistake in the field, I will stand here and I will try to erase those mistakes as the goalkeeper, right? So basically, that's kind of her job, or her role on the team, is to be the de facto leader, if you will. And like I said, the writers were campaigning for that from a narrative standpoint throughout the film from the very, very beginning, and that was easy to kind of pick up on. Even the name of the film, Thunderbolts, with an asterisk, came from the name of Yelena's Little League soccer team. But in case you were wondering the name doesn't really stick throughout the film, right? I mean, it really is. It really is a thing that's kind of like a running joke, where Yelena's father keeps kind of bringing it up. Thunderbolts is a good name, and everybody like, I don't know about all that, right? The name is used more as a placeholder until the end of the movie, where the group is rebranded by Valentina as the New Avengers. So that's actually what the asterisk means, if you were wondering, right? I always was wondering, like, well, why is there an asterisk? And everything I read before the movie was, well, the asterisk means the Avengers are not available. And I go, that doesn't make any sense. But now I understand why there was an asterisk, because the asterisk is that there never really are officially the Thunderbolts. And so that's why there's an asterisk. And, they end up being branded as the New Avengers. We'll see if that sticks moving forward in the MCU. Now, Bucky doesn't join the group until about halfway through the movie, right? He's in the movie, but he doesn't officially join the group until about halfway through, which is another way I think another move the writers made to try to make sure that a woman was established as the group's leader, right? And by the end of the film, it feels like she and Bucky kind of have a co-leadership situation happening, as they lament the fact that Sam Wilson is not on board with them being called the Avengers, which I didn't really have a problem with, because I don't see this group as being all that substantial in the grand scheme of things, with the Fantastic Four and the X-Men both on the horizon in the MCU, right? And speaking of the Avengers, this film reminded me a lot of the first Avengers movie, in that it mostly involved putting a group together that was expected to go on to be the defenders of the world moving forward, right? There is also some confusion about whether or not this group will be referred to permanently as the New Avengers or not, right? We'll just have to wait and see. Now, besides the writing, I thought the acting was fairly good. I had no problem with, anybody's acting performances, but I didn't expect to in a film like this anyway, right? The directing I found to be serviceable, and the cast as a whole was actually kind of fun. With Florence Pugh and David Harbour kind of leading the charge in that regard. Them trying to rekindle their relationship, with Natasha being gone for good, was what I thought gave the movie its heart. Again, something that was definitely needed due to the lack of spectacle here, right? There are no superheroes, so the kind of superhero type stuff that you would see in these movies that were kind of the wow factor was missing here. I have to say, if you're a Taskmaster fan, I'm sorry to report that the character was essentially a throwaway in this movie, which kind of made me wonder why they even included Taskmaster on the poster. I didn't really understand the point of the character's inclusion in this story because the character certainly was not needed at all. But it's not my job to tell Marvel how to spend their money, so I'll leave that there. Now, the Sentry, the villain here, was more the sympathetic variety, right? Which kind of made it difficult to completely root against him, right? He's basically a depressed dude who was given superpowers, and then Valentina, the backup villain, if you want to if you want to look for one, finds him and decides that he's the next man up to be the hero that the world needs at a time, again, when the real Avengers are no longer available under her leadership, right? But his depression kind of gets the best of him, and he kind of unleashes a brief tirade on New York. And I do mean brief, right? Until Yelena manages to therapize him into submission, which I wasn't a fan of, and it certainly doesn't hold a candle to the Chitauri's invasion of New York in the first Avengers movie, though I suppose it was the only way a group of non-super wannabe heroes could defeat what I guess was supposed to be seen as an all-powerful being. So, I mean, I guess it'll have to do, right? My biggest questions, though, after seeing this film are, how involved will this particular group be in deciding the outcome in Avengers Doomsday and beyond? Will they actually be referred to as a new Avengers, or will Sam Wilson show up with his own team? I think that's important as we approach Avengers Doomsday, because are these going to be the Avengers they're talking about here? Or is there going to be another team put together by Sam Wilson? Or, what? I think that's really, really, really going to be important moving forward, right? And, look, we've still got Ironheart, which from what I understand is a movie, The Fantastic Four First Steps, with a damn female Silver Surfer. I'll talk about that in another video. We got Eyes of Wakanda, which I believe is a series, and then Marvel Zombies and Wonder Man before we get a chance to find out what's going on here when it comes to Avengers Doomsday. Now, overall, I'd give this film a 70% or a 7.0 if you're thinking IMDb score. After watching the film, I reiterate my thoughts that this was a placeholder movie, right? A movie carefully placed into the MCU timeline specifically to get us one film closer to the next Marvel tentpole, Avengers Doomsday. And while Disney and Marvel's protocol has been the same since Phase 1, I mean, I won't deny that. The difference here is that back then it was a new thing, and they were doing it with Marvel heroes we cared a whole hell of a lot more about. This film didn't boast any of those heroes, and it doesn't seem to have a problem constantly reminding you of that fact. But that plan doesn't work as nearly as well as it used to, and the result is exactly what I expected. A decently written Marvel film with not much more to offer than a well-crafted narrative and a step towards Robert Downey Jr.'s return to the MCU. But what do you guys think? Have you seen Thunderbolts yet? If you have, what did you think about the film, and more particularly its level of potential importance to the narrative at large as we move forward in the MCU? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you that might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. You can also now support the channel by leaving a super thanks. If you should be so inclined, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, be sure to go and check out themaskscreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.